Kamala Harris needs to fire her media strategist because her ongoing media blitz is backfiring tremendously. She went from completely avoiding the press a few weeks ago to doing a bizarre barrage of media hits back to back to back on podcasts and even television shows in a last-ditch offensive to hoodwink the American voters into electing her. But it's not really moving the needle whatsoever. It's like the more she speaks, the less people want to hear. A radio show host who calls himself Charlemagne the God hosted an audio town hall with her just yesterday, and apparently she stayed glued to the pre-approved talking points while dodging important questions about key issues like border security. Charlemagne pressed her on her and Biden's failure to secure the southern border, which is completely true and not up for debate, but she instantly pushed back and even blamed Senate Republicans for rejecting a proposed bill earlier this year, which she calls a border security bill. But in reality, it would have legalized up to 1 million illegal border crossings every single year. So it's not really a border bill at all. It's an amnesty bill. Obviously, these facts don't matter much to Kamala Harris, as evidenced by her commitment to spreading lies and concealing the truth about that bill regardless of who she's talking to. It's just one lie and one deception after another, and it never stops. It's also one gaffe after another because she can't talk about politics or anything else for more than a few minutes without notes or a teleprompter. That's why it's hysterical to me to think that she could appear on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast sometime soon in a hunt for more male votes. Nothing has been confirmed as of yet, but officials from her campaign met with Rogan's team earlier this week, according to Reuters, citing two sources who have knowledge of the matter. It would be a horrible, horrible misstep on her part given her lack of depth on the issues, which is why I desperately want to see her do it. Rogan's podcast is the most popular one in the United States of America, and roughly 81% of his listeners are men, according to a YouGov poll conducted last year. So the strategy makes sense, in theory. But in reality, however, it's a recipe for disaster because she will inevitably get confused, sidetracked, or totally lost. And I don't think Rogan would intentionally try to embarrass her. Absolutely not. That's not his style, but I think he will ask her insightful questions that she simply cannot answer. It seems like it's just too big of a risk or a liability for her to take with less than 3 weeks to go until Election Day, but then again, perhaps she wants to redeem herself, so to speak, for some of her other recent awkward media appearances, including her beer-drinking interview on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert last week. They were talking about the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, as well as the inadequate and unacceptable recovery effort when she started attacking her opponents for allegedly complicating the process by spreading misinformation online about her and Biden's response. Then, out of nowhere, she magically adopted a terrible Irish accent.
This kind of manipulation is a cynical and corrupt luxury that people are using.
And it's crude. Have you no empathy, man?
Yes.
You know, for the suffering of other people. Have you no sense of purpose?
Yeah, well, that was certainly weird, and it reminded me, actually, of this scene.
For God's sake, man, there are women and children down here! Let us up so we can have a chance! Get back!
I just love it. Anyway, though, the point is that Kamala is misrepresenting the facts to manipulate public opinion. It's like she's physically allergic to speaking the truth, unlike her opponent and challenger, who actually has a habit of oversharing because he values transparency. And speaking of President Trump, he's been doing his own media blitz recently, and it's working like gangbusters. He recently appeared on the Flagrant podcast as one example, which is hosted by two stand-up comedians, and he delivered some choice words on illegal immigration.
So we took in more than 21 million people in the last 3.5 years, and we have no idea where they even come from. They're terrorists, they're drug dealers. You know, in Venezuela, and it's not just South America, but take Venezuela. They've taken their criminals off the streets of Caracas, which was a very dangerous city. You couldn't walk across the street in Caracas and get a loaf of bread. Right now, it's a safe city. Their crime is down 72%. They've taken all of their criminals, almost all of them, and they brought them into the United States and dumped them.
Yeah.
That's not ending well. You know where some of them went? To Aurora in Colorado. And they took over the town. They took it over.
The whole town?
Oh, pretty much, yeah. You know how they took it over? With guns. If they went into the real estate business, like me, I had to go to a bank and borrow.
Yeah.
They went in with
guns.
MK-47s, or they went in with
Would have been so much easier.
weapons like nobody's ever seen before. You know,
I think most people
they
are
went in
on
with
board.
military-style weapons.
Well said, Donald. Well said. Truly. They also discussed how he comes up, by the way, with his trademark nicknames for people, and the whole exchange was comedy gold.
I'm good with names, you know.
You are.
You're very good at
You
that.
are.
I mean, Pocahontas.
Yeah.
We have names.
What about, and there was, Tampon Tim was good. What about,
Tim,
is
the
that?
problem with Tampon Tim, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
In other words,
It's a mouthful.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Tampon. And you can't stutter it through when you call it. It's really a lousy word to say.
Yeah.
But it's quite accurate, right? there are some, like Comrade Kamala. It's a little hard to say. She's comrade because she's obviously a communist.
Yeah.
She's horrible. So I call her comrade.
Yeah.
And it's not bad. But when you put the names together, it's a little, you got to be able to no, you got to be able to put it out there. But we have a lot of good ones.
Classic. But in all seriousness, it would be nice to have a president with some real intelligence and wit once again, especially after 4 years of Biden and Harris.